Good morning, everyone. I see that people are joining. I would wait a couple of seconds before we get started with the agenda. Meanwhile, just wanted to welcome you for this event that we will held today in collaboration with all the partners and with the European Commission that have been instrumental in this venture from IoT to Cloud-Edge-IoT Continuum. My name is Monique Calisti. I'm the CEO of Martel, and I've been coordinating the EU-IoT project. The EU-IoT project is a CSA that has been helping the community, the Commission, the projects, the outcomers, to gather together to create synergies and to work on the development of a community that is meant to stay and help researchers and innovators also beyond the project duration. As you can see from the title, we have been assisting in these last few years to an increasing convergence between IoT, cloud, edge, into what we see as a computing continuum that is instrumental to achieve a sustainable and inclusive and open transition for Europe. And in doing this, we have done quite a few things across the community, and today we will tell you about this. Before we start, since I'm gonna help the whole event to take place, what I would like to remind you all is a couple of housekeeping rules. So first of all, this event is being recorded, so I hope you all feel comfortable with that. And it will be published on the NGIoT website. We want this event to be interactive. We want to be able that we also provide answers and information. So please drop your questions in the live discussion chat. We want to echo what we're doing across social media. So please use the hashtag EU-IoT final event and tag the NGIoT for EU handle. And last but not least, if you have technical questions, send an email to the info@ngiot.eu so that we make sure we can keep quickly answer to you. Now, my name I already said. I will help coordinating this and moderating this event. But it's my pleasure to welcome on our virtual stage today Jan Komarek, that is our project officer and that is working at the European Commission in the IoT unit. We will continue with dense, let's say, morning, but now I would like to give the floor to Jan.
Thank you, Monique. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. I will stop sharing my screen so
Perfect.
You can share your screen.
I will not share my screen, neither my camera due to connection, but I would like to say a few introductory words. So I've been cooperating with Monique and her consortium of EU-IoT for the last 2.5 years on this project to which European Commission invested 2 million euros, but the impact is much larger than that. EU-IoT has been monitoring and gathering information and coordinating the ICT 56 projects, next generation Internet of Things projects. They are worth of 48 million of European funding, and they comprise of a huge amount of
sorry, Jan, sorry, we don't see your screen.
I'm not sharing my screen.
Not that I see.
I'm not sharing my screen.
Sorry. That was a
yeah. So, but I would like to say a few things. So the NGIoT projects they include a lot of use cases. We will hear about some of them during today. So just to introduce today's program a bit, so we'll start with the research priorities for NGIoT. Then guidelines for IoT collaboration sustainability will be introduced. Those are qualitative and quantitative information that was gathered from the ICT 56 projects, and that will include some business success stories. The next session will be on business models, followed by foresight predictions for key use cases. That session will be held by Unlock CEI, which I will mention a little bit later. And then we will have a session on specific skills taxonomy and further cooperation of Cloud-Edge-IoT for digital program. And after future outlook and strategic directions from BlueSpecs and Martel, my colleague and actually head of the IoT sector in DigiConnect, Rolf Riemenschneider, will introduce future Cloud-Edge-IoT priorities for Europe. I would like to also mention that tomorrow is the last day of the EU-IoT project. This is true, but there are two other coordination and support action projects that recently started. Open Continuum started in September 22 and will finish in August 24. And Unlock CEI is another coordination support action that started in June last year and will run until November 24. So there will be definitely continuity of this work. This work is not finishing tomorrow, and there will be more to come from these two CSAs. And then I would like to also mention that today, at this session, we have a vast attendance. It's 990 participants. So I would like to thank everyone for joining this session. And I would like to now give floor to the first presenter, which is Rute.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Jan. So now we have Rute Sofia from Fortis. Rute has been leading her team in this project, and today she will speak about research priorities and recommendations towards standardization. Rute, the floor is yours. I stop sharing.
So hi everybody, let me unmute, and I'm now going to share my screen. So I believe you can see my screen, right? Monique, can you act, please?
Yes, we can see.
Thank you. Okay, so hi everybody. So over the last 3 years, me and Manel Khalifi and a few other people in EU-IoT have been interacting with a lot of you. And so today what I'm going to do over the next 20 minutes is to give you a perspective on the work that we have been doing in EU-IoT concerning standardization. So basically there was a set of activities in EU-IoT that relates with deriving research recommendations towards standardization. So what we did over the last 3 years was to analyze the work and development of the work in the research and innovation actions in ICT 56. And also we interacted with the EU-IoT experts, which comprise the body of international experts across the world. And also together with other colleagues, we have also analyzed related work and therefore derived a few recommendations towards standardization. So the recommendations were of course done for ICT 56, but we believe in EU-IoT that they are also helpful for future projects. So in this slide, what you see is, let's say, a summary of the methodology that we followed. So we analyzed standards development organizations, so also pre-normative entities and also consortia and fora that are relevant in the context of IoT and Edge, and we developed a mapping. So there is a tool online, there are also a few deliverables and reports about this. We have developed also several workshops. So in EU-IoT, of course, we together have developed a high number of events, of impactful events that allowed us to interact closely with the different RIAs. But in the context of standardization, we have also organized 3 events, which you have in the slide, in April 2021, September 2021, and July 2022, which had a specific focus towards standardization. For instance, the first related with an understanding on the landscape of open source and standardization in ICT 56, and the second related with an analysis of open source adoption, and the third was focused on ontological interoperability. So out of this, we have also analyzed knowledge areas in the context of IoT and Edge and proposed a mapping of those knowledge areas to current standardization entities. And we believe that this work may help other projects in finding SDOs where they can contribute and also understanding how to position their work. So in EU-IoT, the scope of the work of this search across research areas and recommendations towards standardization was done from the perspective of EU-IoT. So as explained, we work with IoT and edge computing. So for that, the project has developed an abstraction or proposed an abstraction of an IoT system, which you have on the right-hand side. So an ecosystem in which applications and services are driven by data collected from devices that sense and interface with the physical world. And therefore, we have defined the 5 scope areas that you see in this slide, and which basically are, so let's say, come from common sense, of course, but as you see, so what we proposed was also a structure that considers the OSI model, and so there is some overlap. So there is an abstraction from an IoT system end-to-end, from the interfaces until the cloud server, so the large data spaces, but there's also a vertical analysis done across different types of technologies, for instance, on the infrastructure or on the data spaces. So one of the first aspects that we developed was, as I explained before, so this STO mapping and analysis. Out of that, you have a tool online, which we hope can help you. So in the NGIoT side, can help you in looking for different SDOs, but also pre-standardization entities, consortia, which are extremely important in several vertical domains, for instance, automotive, so that you can look for areas where you want to position the work of your projects. The data that we collected, and that is the basis for this mapping, is, of course, so there are multiple maps in Europe and multiple catalogs, all extremely relevant. So we also, of course, analyze catalogs such as StandICT and cooperated with StandICT. Basically here, what we wanted to do was to analyze also, are we covering, let's say, the SDOs where ICT 56 is involved? What else can we look for? Can we help the projects in finding additional entities where the results can be disseminated and integrated? On the right-hand side, you have the data that we have collected for each of these entities. There is also, so we have this catalog online, which you can use to do a search, but there's also, so the data that we have collected is open source and is part of one of the deliverables of EU-IoT, deliverables 3.8. So you can also just get the raw data. So out of the collection of the data, so deliverables 3.8 gives you also a perspective of the entities that we have analyzed, provides a mapping per domain and per EU-IoT scope area, provides also a summary of key standards per each standardization entity, and provides also some suggestions for study groups and working groups where the projects can get involved. So on the left-hand side, you have a mapping, so let's say a summary of the entities that we have analyzed. So across the EU-IoT 5 scope areas, so human interfaces, far edge, near edge, infrastructure, and data spaces. The green blocks represent standards development entities, so the entities that truly generate standards. The yellow represent pre-standardization, where there is some work done, as you know, before a standard is developed. And then the blue refer to fora and to consortia that also position recommendations, policies, and assist entities in going towards standardization. So for instance, you see here that, so of course the key standard development organizations, so ISO, IGOT, IETF, cover a broad spectrum, let's say, of the full end-to-end IoT environment. But there are also relevant standardization entities such as W3C Web of Things that covers far edge and interfaces. So in this positioning, we believe is important for the projects to understand better where to position the results. On the right-hand side, you have now the same mapping, but per vertical domain. So manufacturing, energy, agriculture, health, smart cities, and transports and logistics. And using the same color, so the green represent STOs and represent their coverage in terms of domains, and the yellow are pre-standardization entities, also showing broad coverage, and the blue, the fora and the consortia. Most of the entities, of course, cover or give the possibility to address and to position research across multiple vertical domains. OPC, for instance, is focused, the OPC Foundation is focused on manufacturing, ODVA also. So there are a few entities which are quite relevant and have a specific positioning on individual vertical domains. So another aspect that we analyzed, as I also explained before, was so we to derive these recommendations, we had to analyze the topics that the RIAs are working on, but also, of course, to try to provide an understanding of a knowledge area so that we can map topics to STOs, because of course we can speak about artificial intelligence in general, but it's a very, very broad scope, and we can consider it a knowledge area, but this is very abstract. So EU-IoT had to create the methodology to do this study. So what we did, you have on the left-hand side the methodology that we followed. We collected information from related sources, which you have on the right-hand side. We interacted directly with the RIAs across EU-IoT, for instance, in Work Package 2 workshops, together with Blue Specs, in Work Package 3, and also in Work Package 5, together with Martel. And we also collected information across different entities that are doing the same kind of scoping, so recommendations towards standardization, and what was their view on knowledge areas. So the main sources that we have used are here on the right-hand side, but of course we have also collected information from other places. So in the EU-IoT deliverable D38, you have this study and this analysis. The methodology is part of another deliverable, also cited in this deliverable D38, which is coming, becoming public in March, so tomorrow. So the knowledge areas that we have derived are on the right-hand side. So this was done based on a methodology where we collected 276 subtopics. And these subtopics were, of course, provided by the sources. And then there was an aggregation also based on a specific methodology that took into consideration, for instance, aspects as maturity of the technology or relevance to Europe, etc. So studies that were already also done by other experts. On the left-hand side, you have a graph visualization of these topics. I'm going just to give an example. For instance, when we go to software, we see, so this is one of the areas of the knowledge areas that was, let's say, defined, and you see some links, okay, and the links that you see go to subtopics. Similarly, so in IoT architectures, we can go, for instance, to scheduling and task prioritization, for instance, etc. So we have then analyzed based on these knowledge map areas. Now we could categorize the impact or the areas where the projects are focusing more, and therefore we wrapped the topics, the subtopics that the areas were working on, and mapped them into, again, the EU-IoT scope areas. And what you have here is a visual representation of the main topics that the projects work on. So not the sole topics, but main topics. And for instance, to give an example, for instance, if we go to far edge, the blue boxes are the most relevant topics, let's say the ones that have higher centrality. So for instance, artificial intelligence, of course, distributed ledger technology, hardware are topics that the ICT 56 RIAs have been focusing on and deriving contributions to standardization based on these aspects. Similarly, if we go to data spaces, we have as key aspects the web of things, semantic technologies, data, and then topics across these aspects, for instance, ontologies, interoperability, abstraction, etc. So all this is relevant not just to know where the areas are positioned, but actually to understand whether these contributions or how these contributions are driving the research in IoT. So in terms of EU-IoT, so what we did was we also collected this information that I just show you visually. You have here just a summary. So I'm again just going to give an example. For instance, for the project Terminet, here are some of the topics that the project works on based on input provided by the project on multiple surveys. Some developed in work package 3 on workshops, some developed also on other work packages of EU-IoT. By different people of EU-IoT, and you have on the right-hand side the key contributions to standards that the projects are developing. So these are already contributions, so not monitoring. So this work is not yet completed. We will close it tomorrow, but as you can see, there is already a very good coverage in, or extremely good coverage in relevant standards development organization, in particular in the key ones. Okay, such as ETSI, ISO, IC. Also, there's also additional topics being developed in RISC-V for the hardware part, which is also extremely important. So then we try to understand, okay, so how are these contributions? What is the spectrum from an end-to-end perspective? Where does this fall? And what you have on this scheme is a representation of, again, the knowledge areas that we collected that you saw on the table before, and where the RIAs are giving input to SDOs. So in red are knowledge areas that are not necessarily covered by the RIAs. Of course, there are some that are actually out of the scope of ICT 56, such as quality or quantum or robotics. There are others, such as configuration and orchestration or data, where the RIAs have been contributing, but you can see the spectrum. So for instance, what we see is that there is a good coverage in terms of data. So contributions to standardization, it falls into near edge, infrastructure and data spaces, configuration and orchestration also. So on red, it means that in terms of IoT interfaces, we did not find many aspects, but however, this shows already a very strong positioning from the 6 projects that are part of ICT 56 towards standardization. Out of this analysis, we have derived some recommendations, which you can read on this deliverable, this 3.8. Here, I'm just going to give you, again, some examples. For instance, if we speak about the far edge, we have analyzed where are the key topics, as I have explained, where are the contributions, and again, so the RIAs are doing, of course, more than contributing. They're also monitoring, heavily monitoring, but we focused really on contributions to standards. And for instance, here on the far edge, we see that there is already contributions in the context of near edge, ETSI, okay, also of data, ETSI-RF, web of things. Then we derived a few recommendations. For instance, there are other groups which we describe and understand as SDOs, such as the IETF or OPC, where there are topics that could be also submitted, if desired, to these entities because they are completely aligned. So we derived these recommendations for each of the scope areas. We've analyzed also some. For instance, we see that in the near edge, in fact, there is already an extremely good coverage in the context of IoT and edge, and we believe there is no need to strengthen further to look for other SDOs where the contributions could be placed. Okay, so summarizing, this is my last slide. So some key takeaways that we derived. So right now, covering and over the last 3 years, we see that, of course, IoT and Edge, in terms of standardization, still suffers from fragmentation. This implies that the projects require significant efforts to monitor and to do contributions that can be adequately placed. It is time-consuming, as we know. Each standardization entity has its own entrance process, let's say. The projects have to define this and to assign resources to do these aspects. On the other hand, there are also open STOs, such as the Internet Engineering Task Force, which can quickly assist in increasing the visibility of RIAs. A lot of us are already there in terms of participating. It is a volunteer effort. It is a good STO, in particular, to assist the projects in a quick entrance, for instance, at an early phase of development of use cases. There are also pre-standardization entities, such as the Internet Research Task Force, so the sister of the IETF, where the projects can also position work, for instance, create groups or propose to create a working group or a study group or a research group in an early phase of design of the projects. And this may help in lowering the effort that is required to give contribution standardization. So in terms of open source and open standards, it is also feasible from the analysis that we did that the projects position even more input. So projects are already doing this, but even more input in forums such as, and associations such as IoTI, BDVA, and GaiaX. Finally, during this process of development towards RIAs, it is feasible to position work also in pre-standardization. So pre-standardization would help the projects in developing the initial vision towards entrance into different and relevant STOs. And some of the projects that we analyzed, they are actually doing this, so have a plan where, based on phases and on an early stage of development, they actually already consider entrance in consortia and fora, then entrance in pre-standardization, and finally development of standards. But however, this has not been yet generalized. So I thank you for your time, and I would take any questions if we have some. Thank you. So I'm going to stop sharing.
Thank you, Uta. I don't see questions for the time being. Actually, you've been very exhaustive. I would like to remind that also the slides will be made available through the NGIoT website. So I think it's possible anyway to catch up later on. Okay, so now I would like to give the floor to the next speaker, that is Manel Khelify, and she will discuss on guidelines for IoT collaboration sustainability. Manel, you can share your screen. And
thank you, Monique. So I will start by sharing my screen. I believe you can see my screen now.
yes.
Okay,
yes,
perfect.
yes.
So hello, everyone. This presentation will be related to guidelines for IoT collaboration sustainability. So during these years, we have conducted an impact assessment analysis in order to provide a set of recommendations and guidelines for the ICT 56 project, but that we believe it will be also helpful for other projects. So in the next slide, we present briefly what was the methodology framework that we have used, and also the key findings and the outcomes driven from this analysis. So the impact assessment is an important process in order to assess the current and future assets produced by the ICT 56 flagship project in Europe. And the main goals consist of defining an action plan and driving a set of recommendations and guidelines to the project. We are focusing more on the qualitative and quantitative scientific impact assessment. The 6 projects that were participating in this analysis are Assist IoT, Ingenious IoT Engine, Terminet, Vidal IoT, and Intel IoT. So the main benefits for the project that are participating in this analysis, it helped them to identify the new impact categories, which are aligned with the European vision, and also support them in sharing their knowledge and establish also future cooperation in the potential common area. The conducted impact assessment analysis is based on a methodology framework that was proposed in 2021 and also was tested. So the main phase of this framework consists first of identifying the categories of the impact assessment, then collecting the data, and finally analyzing the collected data in order to drive guidelines and propose set of recommendations. So for the collection of data, we have designed specific surveys in 2021, 2022, and also this year's, and these surveys were shared with the different projects. Mainly these surveys, they have 4 categories. The first one is related to, it is general information, which is related to the description of the project and their main goals. The second one is the qualitative impact analysis, which is related with the project contribution towards impact in terms of SDG, sustainable development goals, and also research and development. The third one is the quantitative impact analysis, which covers the scientific and also the different innovation KPI and also the open calls. And the last categories, which is the use cases and business exploitation analysis, which were aligned with the CSA OpenDI. So now we are going to over the key findings and the main outcomes of our analysis based on the contribution and the collected information from the ICT56 project. We will start with the contribution towards SDG. So as we can see that the main focus of the project is towards digital industry and the space, which is really understandable due to the nature of the project. They have also interesting contribution towards climate and energy, and also in terms of food, bioeconomy, natural resource, and agriculture, which really relate with the nature of the ICT56 project, that they have specific use cases. For example, focusing on agriculture. I mean, they have addressed many of them this sector. We have also other contribution that are being provided into the health sector. So mainly the project, they have some interesting overlaps in terms of different sectors. In terms of contribution towards IoT scope area, so we can see that the projects provide a good coverage across all IoT scopes, which will allow them to redirect their solution and services toward different sectors. in order to be aligned with the European vision. For example, we can see that most focus were into far age and near age, and also they have many relevant contribution in terms of IoT interfaces and human also infrastructure, and as well for data space. For the ethical impact, so as we know, this analysis help in identify the potential ethical impact categories that were tackled by the different RIA, and also it will help to identify the potential issue that might raise. As we can see from this figure, the RIA, they tackle different and relevant ethical aspects like the privacy and data governance, and also the technical robustness, and as well they have important contribution to and legal aspects. So this will definitely help in developing the different strategy to address and tackle the aspects, and also to later to develop guidelines in order to mitigate any potential, I mean, to ensure any the ethical principles that they're really upheld. For the quantitative analysis, we start by the scientific impact. As we can see, the valuable and excellent level of relevant scientific publication were produced, which cover a large part of publication driver here in Europe, and also very good level of, I mean, major knowledge and technology transfer, as well as in terms of advanced training. So the strong and high number of PhD and master students will help centrally in developing new innovative technologies. In terms of standardization, so the RIA are monitoring, and not only monitoring, they also have important contribution toward many SDU like RTF, ETSI, GX, and here are some concrete examples of the standardization efforts of the ICT 56 projects. For instance, we have Assist IoT, they already proposed a standard, Vidal IoT, they have come HPC standard, and also the other projects, they have very interesting standards which are still under development. For finally the business model and use cases, many aspects, we can see that many aspects were considered by the project, like the openness and also the reusability, and as well the interoperability. So mainly the project, they show very interesting and high TRL level, and also good maturity, research and development maturity. So as we have noted, many assets that they are developing, they have this high TRL level, which is it is between 6 to 7. And in order to concretize the relevant effort that was conducted by the different projects, and also to highlight their success story and the most relevant contribution that they have. So there are some here, I'm gonna present some of their relevant contribution. For example, we start with Terminate, that they develop an air-assisted end-to-end smart precision smart animal monitoring platform. Also, Assist IoT, they already developed a GNO, which is gateway neighbor, a universal gateway with the modular design. Intel IoT and Vidal IoT, they have also very interesting products. The first one is for Intel IoT, really semi-autonomous agriculture vehicle, which is which incorporate the human in the loop. And also the Vidal IoT, they developed this Vidal IoT I2 hardware platform, which provide very modular and scalable hardware for heterogeneous system. And also for IoT engine, we can mention that they developed the digital powertrain and condition monitoring, and we don't forget the very interesting system developed by NGIoT, which is an AI system for prediction per city in containers for container traffic rates. Okay, so as key finding and takeaway for this analysis, and you can find more details in our last deliverable D57, and but we can see that most of the projects, they have exhibit good overlap for and the main aspects that they have to consider. So the data sharing and integration, which will promote data reuse and also can help to new insight and innovation. Another relevant aspect is the collaboration in the dissemination of the research finding in order to ensure that the research has really a positive impact on the society, and also the collaboration across the different projects, which definitely will help in promoting innovation. Also, as we have noticed, very important research and development contribution and support for PhD and master students. So this excellent scientific contribution, so the coordination across the different projects, I mean, in other aspects, it will help in improvements and in order to get more stronger impact. For example, there is a book that concretes the joint efforts between the different projects that will appear soon. And also we have very interesting level in terms of contribution towards the standardization, as Ruth presents in the last the previous talk. And we have also concrete standard that's already here, and many other they are under development. Also, IoT is promoting and it will be in the deliverable D38 in order to have more details. The usability aspect is of the different assets. It's another aspect. For example, where to consider that the product can be tested by a third party, and finally the skills training. And we have noticed that the open calls is really valuable tools in order that help definitely in this perspective. As a conclusion, and in order to wrap up, so we have a really significant contribution which are aligned with the European vision, and we have good alignment towards the SDG. We have also very high technology level, TRL level exactly, and good maturity. And we noted that many developed reusable assets, I mean innovation or products, and very interesting cooperation and collaboration between the project towards research and development, organizing joint events like hackathon, and also valuable scientific contribution. This is all for my side. I will be happy to answer any question, and I will pass the token to Monique. Thank you. I will stop sharing my screen.
Thank you very much, Manel. Thanks a lot for your overview. It's very rich. I'm trying to catch up, sorry, on whether there are questions. I don't see. I see comments, very positive comments, which I'm glad. I wanted also to point out the fact that a lot of the information that we provide today will be made available via more detailed deliverables, as you can imagine, the outcomes of the project that will be published soon via the project website, the NGIoT.eu portal. So now, without any further ado, we will move to two presentations that are focusing more on market-related aspects. We will have Mirko Presser from Ors University that will talk about NGIoT business models and key sector for use cases. And then we will have Golbu Purabdollayan, sorry for the pronunciation, that will focus on foresight predictions for key use cases of Cloud-Edge-IoT and development across the key sectors for the EU community. Mirko, if you want to start. Here we go. We can see your screen. We cannot hear you. Now we can hear your voice.
Yeah, good, great. Thank you, Monique, and thank you for the introduction. So I'm Mirko Presser, and there should be a second name on here, most definitely as well. Maybe a few others too. So I'm presenting work from all of the project partners, of course, that contributed to this activity as well. And specifically, I will be talking about two aspects of it. So we studied a number of use cases from various sources, the majority coming from the ICT 56 projects, of course, but we also have other industry cases that we collected in this piece of work for EU-IoT. And we analyzed those cases using a number of different business development tools and looking at business model patterns in those applications as well, or use cases as well. And this provided, in essence, a set of use cases as inspiration, which we've documented and published via the NGIoT.eu website, as well as a number of tools and modules or learning modules, which we term the e-learning platform, that can be accessed and used under a Creative Commons license that is very open. And so these are information that should be widely used by a lot of people, hopefully in future projects, but also in their private companies. Maybe also some consultants can pick this up and work with that. So that's the premise and the background here. So a little bit more details. We collected in total 30 use cases, and we tried to document them as detailed as possible. So it's 29 organizations that provide those 30 use cases. So there's one organization that is represented twice. That's why that number is here. But we used mainly semi-structured interviews to collect the data, and then also, of course, received some data sheets and information from them to provide the information, as well as the graphics and videos that we included into these use cases as well. So it's all based on a qualitative data collection technique, and then presenting this in terms of a use case. We have a good geographical spread, maybe a little bit oriented towards the western side of Europe, but in general, I think a fairly good geographical spread. We also have a very good spread in terms of the domains that we collect cases from. So these come from agriculture, energy, utilities, healthcare, manufacturing, mobility and transportation, as well as smart cities and communities. And then we have, I think, one case that we couldn't really classify into any of those categories. So we have something that's called other as well. Spread across a different number of employees that provided the use case is also very good. So we have a number of smaller startups, as well as sort of established SMEs, and then also a few from larger companies as well. And that's also reflected in the spread of when those cases were first released. So the first one that we studied, it was released in 2000, when barely the term Internet of Things was in our vocabulary, but the newer ones are from more recent times. So we're checking then the content more on the cases, not so much the metadata. We have, as Ute already earlier presented, a set of technological models, or a model based on technology that we presented, and we also followed this in a questionnaire format, looking at the type of components or technological orientation that these use cases take into consideration. And we did a baseline measurement on the digital maturity that these organizations that provided those cases or were involved in those cases felt that they were at a certain level. So we have, in this context, the digital maturity that we measure on 6 different categories. So this would be customers and partners. It would be on technologies, processes, the organizational structure, the cultural aspects of the organization, as well as the strategy. And of course, we would expect that all of these use case providers or the organizations that work with these use cases would score fairly high on digital maturity. What is interesting is that in general, the process side was scored a little lower. So how they saw themselves in terms of developing digital solutions in their process work. And what is also interesting to see is that there are 2 dips in the sectors that we analyzed, which was the energy sector and the mobility sector, that scored lower in general on the digital maturity than others. If we dig a little bit more deeper into the metadata on the use cases, we've used a tool called the St. Gallen Magic Triangle to analyze the business model in terms of 4 categories. So, what they're delivering, who they're delivering to, why they're delivering in terms of revenue model, and then how in terms of value chain. And we analyzed also the changes that occurred in those 4 dimensions, let's say. What we can see that is, of course, most of the solutions are focusing on a what, so they're providing a new value proposition, mostly to the sector. So here, for instance, in agri-food, we have a lot of what, and some of the who and the how has been changed. Similarly, in the healthcare, for instance. But what is interesting is that when we're looking at the manufacturing and the mobility and transport sectors, we're seeing, of course, still some what's being changed, but the majority of the changes that are happening is how things are done inside the organizations. So this is more about processes that are getting changed in those organizations based on the use cases that are being provided. And that leads us to the final part of the meta-analysis of the use cases, which is the super patterns and the sub patterns. We used a framework that is provided by Weking, where he analyzed a number of dimensions from, I think it was over 50 types of use cases provided in the literature, and came up with a set of patterns that you can analyze and figure out when you're looking at various use cases and their business model patterns. And you can see here sort of the spread. So the majority is on servitization, expertization, of course. So one is about, how to servitize, for instance, long life partnerships or product as a service, result as a service. And then you have the expertization, which mainly focuses on consulting services and platformization of the product or the process. So this led us then into developing this use case catalog. So these are the 30 use cases. You have a link here for accessing the use cases. They're all somehow empowered by an IoT context, but they're all very different in their setup, and they are, of course, in various sectors. And NGIoT, on the website, you have various filtering possibilities to find use cases that might be relating to yourself, or if you're looking for inspiration in a particular sector, you can find that fairly quickly, even though 30 is probably still possible to browse. They're all similarly organized, so you can also use them as, for example, teaching cases. or cases for workshops, that they're interchangeable in terms of that setup as well. So I'll let you explore those in your own time. So we get to the second part of the presentation or the overview. And this is all, of course, also encoded in our deliverables. And the final one will also be released at the end of this month, which is already tomorrow. But you can also find some other information there. But the easiest way to actually just get access to the use cases is via the website. If you need more information about the use cases, you should also dig into the deliverables to get some more information there. For instance, about the business model patterns and our methodologies and so on. So the second part is then about this, what we refer to as the e-learning platform. And the idea about the e-learning platform is that it's actually requires a lot of manpower to give coaching and activities to specific projects to help them with the business development. So this is more like a self-service oriented tool that helps people go through several steps of understanding how to do business modeling. So it's a menu. So it's not like it's a predefined course or a predefined set of activities that you should be going through. But you can start with zero knowledge or jump into any of those modules at any point in time if you need something about service design, for example, or an early usability testing of prototyping activities and so on. And this is something that's also growing now beyond NGIoT in terms of the types of tools that we're offering. And we're trying to also now start thinking about if we can define some courses on top of it. And again, all of those are under Creative Commons license that is very open. So this can be used by anybody. And also the models and step-by-step guides and graphical representations and so on, they can all be downloaded and used free of charge and without worrying about any infringements at all. So it's all workshop ready. So when you go into these modules, so here's the link for the high level of it. You will go one layer below into another website where you can actually get the access to the data, but they all follow a specific pattern. So again, that helps you to, if you understand how to read one module, you can easily start understanding reading another module. So you have the module in brief. You have the concepts and definitions. You have the method of working with the suggested tools. You have a step-by-step guide. So if you want to go into a workshop, it even indicates how much time you should be reserving, how many people you should have available for the workshop and so on. So it's a very easy to use step-by-step process. And then it also follows up with a number of learning outcomes that you should have and reflections, as well as some examples from experts and what next steps you should take. So which other module you should be working with or what else you should be doing. Throughout, we also have our own activities where we used these tools. So we used several of those tools in some of the testing and validation that we have and that we show in a little while. But we also adopted, for instance, new tools like the value network mapping tool that was suggested by Ulrich Löwen at the AITI context, where he proposed that we should write on a white paper for value network mapping exercise in the manufacturing industry, and he's now branching this out into a wider data space context across other sectors as well. And from EU-IoT, we provided 10 of our 30 use cases into this white paper that we developed there using the methodology of the value network mapping activity, and then also added this as one of the tools into the toolbox. So it's not all, of course, coming from us. We borrow a lot of the information and work from other people, and just trying to adopt a learning environment and an environment that can be easily used for workshops and activities in a self-service fashion. So that leads us to the final aspect of which is testing and validation. So we had a number of activities together with projects, as well as something maybe a little bit more regional with our own Danske T, as well as with OpenDEI and AITI, for example, doing a number of activities. And generally, we got very good feedback. So there were some comments about additional tools that we should add, as well as some video material to explain it, as well as some a result and case material that we continuously now updating and also providing. So we also used this in our own teaching activities. So we're using it in a master's course in engineering that is called Technology-Based Business Development at Aarhus University, where we've tested some of those tools also with our students. So specifically the value design tool we use there, where we got very good feedback. And then, for example, we also used it at the advisory and coordination board meeting that we had earlier, late last year in September in Brussels, where we also had some good feedback and follow up based on the activities there. And like I mentioned, we continuously trying to also improve the content and validate our results. So if you're interested, you can always reach out to us. We are interested to collaborating with the projects, as well as people that are interested to do business development on their IoT cases. We have 3 new tools that are recently coming up on the platform. So the value network mapping I already talked about. We have an IoT business model innovation tool, which is maybe more a startup tool for business model innovation when it comes to specifically IoT stack-based activities. And then also a 7S tool that we added also very recently. And I will just copy into the chat 2 reports that you can also download that are related to this. So OpenDI report on the activities here, as well as the white paper from AITI. And I think with this, I would like to thank you, because my 15 minutes is up, I think, so that Golbu also gets her time. And if you have any questions, then please ask. Monique, I think you're muted.
Sorry, yes. Mirko, thanks a lot. I see that you put also the links to the papers on the chat, right? It's you?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Now I would like to give the floor to Golbu. That is the coordinator of CSA called Unlock CI.
Thank you very much, Monique.
Thank you, Golbu.
Thank you. So let me just try to share my screen. Okay. I'll put it in presentation mode. So you should be able now to see my screen. Okay. Okay, so thanks, Monique. Good morning, everyone. I'm Golbu Puraptalayan from IDC, the coordinator of Unlock CI project. One of the CSAs that Jan mentioned also. Today, I'm going to share with you some of the insights and results of Unlock CI in terms of the market trends, use cases of the CI demand landscape. But before going to the core of the results, just a few words about EUCI or EU-CloudEdge-IoT initiative. Actually, it's a European initiative which is established by the European Commission through the 2 CSAs of the computing continuum, as Jan mentioned. So one is Open Continuum, which is focusing on the supply side, and the other is Unlock CI, which is covering on the demand side. This initiative is formed basically to promote cooperation among both projects from one side and also value chain actors from the other side, value chain actors from the Cloud-Edge-IoT landscape, and bring them together in order to better understand what are the developments and to facilitate the deployment across the computing continuum, but also to help also the policymakers to define the larger scale pilots. The initiative started initially having under its umbrella the MetaOS projects that you can see on the right. However, now the umbrella is bigger, covering also other project clusters, which have already started their journey since last January. The initiative, the EU-CloudEdge-IoT initiative, is built on top of the previous initiatives, such as EUCloud, NGIoT, EU-IoT, to also support the sustainability of those initiatives. And just to say that EU CEI, so EU-CloudEdge-IoT, meaning both Unlock, CEI, and Open Continuum, are working to provide support to research innovation actions. From Unlock CI perspective, one of the main missions and crucial supports that we provide is related to understanding of the Cloud-Edge-IoT demand landscape in Europe, in order to help the projects to align their solutions with the future opportunities in the European markets and also the needs of the European market, and so also to help them to facilitate the commercialization of their solutions. So today, I will share with you a glimpse of insights and results that are generated so far in Unlock CI. These results have been generated by running an extensive survey of 700 interviews, telephonic interviews by IDC across Europe with Cloud-Edge-IoT stakeholders, meaning industrial stakeholders, so from the demand side. The overall analysis basically confirms the fact that Cloud-Edge-IoT is a core part of the European technology infrastructure. And as you can see here in this slide, there is a large spending and market opportunity on these technologies in Europe. So if we start from IoT, we can see that European IoT spending in 2022 was around 176 billion euros. That figure, we expect that figure will grow with a compound annual growth rate of 10.4%. So it means that in 2026, we can expect a market spending of 258 billion euros of IoT spending across Europe. For cloud, obviously, this amount is bigger because cloud is if we want to say, is the most mature technology among these components of technology that we are looking at. The cloud market size in 2022 was around 110 billion euros with a annual growth rate of around 22%. Again, which means that in let's say there's a strong growth for cloud. European organizations will go on with cloud, but what is very interesting here is the shift of many of these organizations toward edge market. So if you can look at the right side, we can see the spending, European edge spending in edge market, which is expected to grow from 38 billion in 2021 to 75 billion in 2026. So we can see that it has really a rapid and a quick growth in Europe. It's one of the key technologies that many European organizations will rely on in the near future, and many digital capabilities and innovation will require edge. So what we expect is that across with cloud growth, there will be really a big growth of also spending on edge technologies in the next 5 years in Europe. But then apart from this, maybe the main question here is that how is the adoption and usage of these technologies of Cloud-Edge-IoT across different sectors in Europe? In Unlock CI, this survey, we focus on 5 sectors, so agriculture, energy, healthcare, manufacturing, and transportation. And what we can see as the results is that on the left side, while for cloud, the adoption rate is higher since it has been already in use by many organizations. So we can see that starting from the bottom of the slide, more or less 80% of organizations are already using it, with extensive use in sectors such as manufacturing, healthcare, and transport. That we know that manufacturing has been one of the first sectors that started to go towards the cloud. Regarding IoT, we see that around 60% of the European organizations say that they are, especially in energy and healthcare and manufacturing, they use it. They use IoT. And this percentage in agriculture is less. But what is interesting is that we can see the portion of those who use it is limited, use it in limited extent is really notable. So what it can tell us is that agriculture is one of the sectors that we could expect that in the near future, in the next 5 years, we'll have really a rapid growth of IoT adoption, because currently it's very limited use. But what we expect is that during the next 5 years, the usage will be gone into an extensive order. Then from a perspective of the edge technology, we know that edge is an emerging market, so with a lower adoption rate, obviously lower than IoT and cloud, but we can see the tendency to use is quite notable, since a good percentage use it to a limited extent. Healthcare sector is pioneer here, according to the results, most probably due to the requirements of data processing at the edge, followed by manufacturing. However, the adoption rate is still low, with 8%, as we can see here, 8% extensive use in manufacturing and 7% in transport. Again, agriculture is an interesting sector. We can see here, since it seems that it has started its adoption of edge, and it's expected to accelerate in future years. So again, what we can understand from here is that European organizations have started their journey towards implementation of edge technologies, and so there will be many opportunities in future in the market for solution providers in terms of the edge ecosystem. If we look at the right side, we can see the distribution, let's say, of the respondents in terms of if they want to use or if they are already using the cloud or on-prem. So what we can see is that organizations, most of organizations take a balanced approach between on-prem and co-location. This high usage of the balanced approach most probably results from the fact that most of these companies already have their own resources, IT resources. So especially if we talk about the manufacturing and energy, that we can see they have a higher impact. And as we can see in the light pink, only a tiny group use public cloud exclusively. So if we want to understand that, what are really the top use cases that are going to be implemented in the next 5 years in the European market in terms of the Cloud-Edge-IoT. Based on the result of the survey, you can see the top 3 use cases per sector. So for agriculture, and then on the right side of the use cases, you can see the workload location. So where the workload will be loaded across the computing continuum for each use case. So for agriculture, we can see that the most relevant use cases are related to asset tracking, equipment automation, and precision agriculture. So for a use case such as precision agriculture, obviously, due to the fact that there are many connected devices and there is the need for doing the analysis and processing of data at the edge, the load will be more towards the edge part of the continuum, while for equipment automation, it could be distributed among the cloud and edge, and for asset tracking, it could be more shifted towards the cloud. For energy, it's a bit different because we talk about different parts of the energy value chain, so from energy generation to distribution to consumption. Again, the top 3 use cases that we have identified are smart grids, drone-based observations, and employee safety monitoring. For smart grids and employee safety monitoring, again, the workload will be more towards the edge. While for drone-based observation, it's balanced because for some applications, such as real-time analysis of the images, we need edge, but for some other, it can be done on the cloud. For healthcare, the top 3 use cases are hospital asset tracking, bedside telemetry, and AI-assisted diagnosis and treatment. Healthcare is one of the sectors which is really more towards the edge. So most of the data, I mean, one of the main reasons is the fact that many of the devices, in healthcare are connected together, and they should do the analysis and processing of the data on the edge. So, and there are, so all the, let's say, all the devices are not located in a specific particular location. So edge, it really plays a crucial role in healthcare. About manufacturing, we have use cases which are related to asset monitoring and maintenance, AGVs and robots, and visual inspection and quality control. Again, for those use cases such as AGVs and visual inspection, we expect more transformation to edge, while for the others that we have one location that all the manufacturing equipments are let's say located, it can be a balanced workload distribution between cloud and edge. And then finally, for transportation, we have port and warehouse automation, fleet tracking, and autonomous vehicles and infrastructure. Again, with different distributions of the workload. One thing that it's important to mention here is that some of these use cases are cross-domain use cases. So, for instance, when we talk about the asset tracking, it's really a cross-domain use case. Or when we are talking about, the physical security, drone-based observation, these are all cross-industry use cases. So it's important to notice that while we are focusing on specific industries, but there are also use cases that need exchange of data from one sector to another sector. And here again, it comes the topic of the data spaces, but I don't want to go through it in this short time.
Yes, yeah, we are a bit late with the
okay, so I will.
You.
Okay, I will just wrap up here very quickly.
Thank you.
So, these are the core challenges for each technology component that you can see. Just to say something here, and I won't go through the detail, is that as you can see for IoT, because this confirms what Mirko was explaining, for IoT, one of the main barriers is complexity in the deployment of the IoT, and this is exactly why it's important that we have concrete business models for IoT exploitations. And then for cloud security and for edge, obviously security, cost and skills, which is also, I think, an important point that later on Brandon also will target. So the final message is that there are many opportunities there because there are many challenges. So because of that, there are many opportunities for European players, especially in the edge market. These results will be published in the deliverable that will be generated by Unlock CI by end of May. So you will have it on the website of EUCloudEdgeIoT to study it. Just to say that if you want to get in touch with us, there are the EU-CI joint task forces, and these are the contacts. Sorry for, I don't know if I went more than what I had.
Thank you, Golbu. Don't worry. We all went a little bit long. So now there is one question that is about for you, Golbu, that is about how to treat transportation. Do you consider transport and logistics together?
Very good question.
Yeah,
very good question. Yes, exactly. So what do we mean by transportation? What we considered was that logistics and transportation. So from one side, we had something like autonomous vehicles. From the other side, we had logistics like smart ports. Yes, so we merged them together.
Thank you very much. Thank you. We have to move on. Unfortunately, there would be many other things that would be nice to discuss. Golbu, if you can stop sharing your screen. Now we give the floor to the next two colleagues that will talk about IoT-specific skills. In particular, we have John Soldatos from Netcompany Intrasoft and Brendan Rowan that is from Luspex and is the coordinator of also another CSA called LEADS that focuses on digital skills. So now the floor goes to John. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Monique. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share, first of all, my screen, and then what was I hope you can see my screen. Yes.
Yes, we can see.
Thank you. So I'm going to share our outcomes on training and skills during the past 30 months, which we believe they are significant and they are a very good contribution to the IoT community, not just for these 30 months, but also beyond the end of the project. Just to give a little bit of context here, we have a very relevant policy context here, the EU agenda on skills, which is a very important it is a very important tool for the evolution to the Industry 5.0 era. There we know we need new skills, and we need people with new capabilities and reskilling and upskilling from what we have today. And on the other hand, we have a market context which includes a rapid growth of IoT technologies in the market, and companies declaring that the skills gap is one of their main problems to adopt and fully leverage Internet of Things technology and all the other technologies in the Cloud-Edge continuum. They cannot find enough people, enough skilled people for the transformations they are planning and to consume the technology. So in this context, this was our training strategy. We wanted to ease access to educational and training resources for our community. We wanted to develop focus resources, and we wanted to develop some tools for the different stakeholders to plan and to execute their reskilling and upskilling strategies. So 6 main outcomes of our project, and I'm gonna go to present a couple of minutes for each one to you. So number 1, we build a catalog of IoT training resources. You can find it online. What is the idea there? We have aggregated hundreds of IoT training resources from our community, but from all the course ecosystems. You can think of ecosystems like Coursera, edX, Udemy. So whatever is IoT a focused course, not marginally related to IoT, but really what has to do with IoT, you can find it there. No more Googling and no more need to visit many different sites to find and compare courses. You have them from a single access point. That's our IoT training catalog. And I go straight to our second result. So we organized a number of training webinars. We had the valuable assistance and support from our ICT 56 partner projects, focusing on cutting-edge topics. So the seminars we organized here were really dealing with things for which you cannot find good courses online, or you cannot find any courses online at all. So that was the reason we had these courses, and you see we had a quite impressive number of registrations and actual participations in the courses. And you see the topics that were covered were really edge, like edge IoT and artificial intelligence of things, tactile internet and IoT, augmented reality and the metaverse, and also decentralized intelligence using distributed ledger technologies, what we commonly call blockchains. So these courses gave us the opportunity to develop some content on these cutting-edge topics. You can find this content on the website. We also animated the community, and we also had we attracted the interest of people outside the circle of ICT 56 projects and TAS and EU projects, but actually people all over the world attended these courses. And I'm going to our result number 3, our third result, our third main outcome that we give to the community, which is the EU-IoT skills framework. So this is actually a taxonomy of skills. We did an extensive desk research. We've seen what all the consulting companies, all the HR companies have been putting forward. To the best of our knowledge and our research, there is no structured way to classify the IoT skills. So this is what we did. We created the classifications of IoT skills, a taxonomy, which is very useful if you plan trainings, if you plan educational strategies, also for companies and for policymakers to see what are the areas they're investing on and so on. So that's our skills framework. I'm not going to present it in much detail because of lack of time. These are all described in our documents and white papers. What is the idea here is that we have an hierarchical classification of the IoT skills. We are not just focusing on the technological and technical skills, but we underline the importance of other types of skills, like soft skills, also end user skills. This is very important for IoT skills for industrial workers, what we used to call operator 4.0 or operator 5.0 in this project, and also management skills. So for the people that there are the IoT project managers, the IoT product or service managers, and so on. And this is some more details about our framework, what it looks like. So you see that our taxonomy goes deep down to individual skills. So, for example, when talking about IoT devices, we enumerate a list of different skills relating to different IoT devices. And likewise, when you go to IoT programming, different programming language, when you go to IoT analytics, different machine learning and IoT analytics techniques. Our fourth outcome is driven by the framework. We organized an IoT skills survey. It was not a survey for anyone. It was a survey to be answered that attracted answers from IoT experts. So people that they are working in the industry or in the IoT industry or even in the human resources, and they deal with skills every day. So the purpose of the survey was to rank the different skills of our framework, the detailed skills of our framework, according to their relevant importance for the market, right? And we found some really interesting findings. So we had, like more than 180 people responding to the different surveys. Again, we perceive these people as IoT experts. It was not, a survey open to anyone. It was really a focused survey. So we are proud to have achieved this participation in the surveys. And an interesting finding there is that actually the skills of general applicability are highest in demand, right? Rather than some more IoT focused and specialized skills. Of course, we spotted differences per industry. So for example, some Internet of Things protocols or industrial Internet of Things technologies are really high in demand in specific industrial sectors. For example, manufacturing and so on. So we spotted these findings. And I'm going to our result number 5. We got, driven by the findings of the surveys and by the skills framework, we got these skills, and we constructed skills profiles and learning paths. So we provide a methodology for going for a specific knowledge profile, skills profiles, to the skills that this profile needs to comprise, and to the learning path. So this is very useful if you want to build like career development paths in the IoT industry. And here are some examples. Finally, our result number 6 is we did this for a number of 16 skills profiles that we deem as very important for the industry, and they are listed here, which one considered somehow validated service. And if you are really, we advocate that if you are really certified or knowledgeable in the individual skills of this profile, then you are sort of validated and certified for the skills profile overall. So these are our 16 validated skills profiles. Now, if you want to read more, we got this skills white paper. This had a virality effect, like, 25,000 or more impressions on LinkedIn, already many hundreds of downloads, but a lot of interactions, right? So we found a lot of people saying, we like your approach, this was lacking from IoT, or it is the findings are quite similar to what other consulting companies or people in the industry have been doing. So we attracted a lot of attention and interaction. It's a white paper. You can find it in our website. You can find it on Zenodo, download it, and you will see all the details and the analysis. So wrapping up Monip, I think we have these results. We have a strategy to sustain these results after the end of the project. We believe that they are useful for different stakeholders. For example, training providers that they want to design learning paths, they want to design training, they want to design upskilling processes. So we give them the tool to do so. Policy makers that they are planning, different actions, also funding allocations, and above all, IoT professionals that they are offered nowadays with a sea of information, a mine of information and courses and everything. So we put everything in context and we give them the path to benefit from it. So that was all from my side.
Thank you.
Hope I didn't get them.
Thank you, John. It's amazing how much information and work needs to be condensed in this short time, because I know all the work that has been behind it. So thanks a lot for having gone through in a very efficient way. I would like to remind again that, as John pointed out, there's a few white papers available that provide more details, so please go ahead. Now we give the floor to Brendan. Brendan has been a very active collaborator in this project, but today he's also presenting another related project that is called LEADS, and we'll discover more in a second with Brendan. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Monique. And as you say, I'm kind of wearing two hats here today. And what I wanted to do was show actually how EU-IoT is influencing what's been taken forward into the Digital Europe program. So I'm representing a CSA within the Digital Europe program called Leading Europe's Advanced Digital Skills. We are an 18-month project that started in October and due to end next year. Really what we're looking at within LEADS is understanding what is actually the main trends in the emerging skills needs for different technology areas. We're looking to really define what's the demand and supply gaps currently between advanced digital skills and current education and training supply offering. And what we're trying to do with that is understand what's the best way, and similar to what John's just presented, how can we actually meet that gap in the most effective way, while also building that relationship between education and training industry and understanding for which type of skills, where is it going to be most relevant. Now, within the Digital Europe program, there is 580 million euro being spent on advanced digital skills. And what we're trying to do is understand how that can best be spent. So not just what skills need to be supported more than others, also what's the best method for those skills to be delivered in that way. And really what we're trying to do, and if you look in the bottom left there, is understand how we can change the current problem that we have, where technology is accelerating much, much faster than we are able to skill our people and provide the talent so that we actually achieve strong prosperity and we avoid some of the challenges that we're experiencing today, both in the jobs market and also in a competitive global environment as well. And that's what we're trying to do in this way. So what are we looking at within LEADS? We're looking at 6 technology areas, which are the scope of the Digital Europe program. So data science and BI, cybersecurity, IoT, quantum, AI, and cloud in that way. And what we have produced, and this is something that we're looking at, is what is the advanced digital skills taxonomy? So we've got 3 layers. So we've got our technology areas. And as I say, we're looking at tech first. So where's tech development going? Where is the skills going to be needed? So that's why we're taking a tech first approach in this area. We have groups of skills pockets. I think it's around 35. And we also have those skills pockets matched to specific job roles under those tech areas. And one of the things that we were able to do, and given the work done within EU-IoT, was actually build on that taxonomy about how we're actually approaching it and how we're going to form on specifically in the area of IoT in that way. And this document is available since December, and currently you can expect a report on where the current demands are. And speaking of demands, this is how we're going about it. So we take our taxonomy, we have a look at which of the technology areas are based on the 150 market use cases. We're looking forward to a 2027 horizon, which is that of the Digital Europe program, but also really 2030 viewpoint in that way, and how the digital decade achievements can be made. And we look really at where the market is saying where they're going to be implementing technologies and what the future use cases are going to do with that, and how we can actually then see what the skills demands linked backwards from that future looking areas is there. And as you can see already within the top 10 of skills pockets that we're looking at, AI application development is going to increase 4 times. So currently, it's already got a deficit of a gap of around 10% between supply and demand. That's going to increase 4 times over the next 5 years. So we're not talking huge horizons here. We're talking the need is growing massively. Data analysis, AI implementation, and then cloud and IoT analytics are still there very high. Specifically looking at IoT skills, and this is something just to not go into detail, but to kind of point out, IoT analytics is going to be the most growth skills areas we expect over the next 5 years. Included in that is IoT data management and storage, and then also application orchestration growing in the area there, as well as all the other areas that you can see. But the one thing to highlight there is that IoT skills demand is growing. This also is what we've seen in EU-IoT, and this is what is taken forward in that way. Similarly for cloud, you'll see cloud storage and data center development is the highest growth area over the next 5 years. Cloud sustainability is a concept that is coming in, that is a very important area. And then also microservices orchestration within a cloud environment is up there, including agile development methodologies and also the multi-hybrid cloud interoperability and orchestration. And that brings us to a nice link back into what EU-IoT did in September when we met with the experts and in coordination with John. Some of the outputs that we saw there is actually matching exactly what we're seeing in terms of the market data as well in that way. But what is the problem that we're facing in terms of providing skills predictions over the next 5 years? And that really is the tech convergence. So this is something that is very present specifically within the IoT environment and that we have to try and address in this way. And that is no more obvious than when we look at the Cloud-Edge-IoT Continuum concept, that we are completely blurring the lines between what we presented before, which were the 6 kind of nice technologies in that way. They're all being combined into different areas, and it's all tends to be meeting on the edge, if we can use that phrasing. And the skills demands that's going to create is going to create a problem for us in that way. So, even if we go back to the top 10 skills that are going to be growing in the area, you will see almost all of them apply to the Cloud-Edge-IoT Continuum. In fact, they all do in that way. And this is where we're coming into a change in how we provide skills and training programs, and also how we describe what are the advanced digital skills, especially within this area of the cloud edge IoT. What we really need to figure out within Leeds, so we've inherited from EU-IoT an excellent taxonomy that we're able to apply, and it's actually guiding a lot of the conversations that we're having, but we need to now account for edge, because we are basing ourselves on use cases and technologies that exist now, and we need to be looking at 5-7 years time, and we need to be able to put in place those programs within the digital year program that are going to make sure that organizations, industry, have the skills to take on the technologies that we produce from RIAs, such as the NGIoT initiative. How do we recombine those skills pockets? Because one of the assumptions that we have is actually that the skills are not changing, but the roles and the profiles that John has prepared, for an example, are actually going to be needed to be revisited and look at how we repackage who is the person with the different skills that is required for these areas. And will new skills arrive? Will we have new job roles and will we have new skills, or is it a case of minor reskilling or upskilling in these areas as well? And what we're doing about it is, as you've seen earlier from Galbu within Unlock CEI, they're looking at what are the use cases. So we'll be looking at how we can benefit from the work being done in CEI to be able to guide the future demands based on the use case in that way. And the call out to everyone on the call here today is that we need your support in being able to understand those questions, but how is it that we address that recombination of skills within it, and what's the best recommendations that we can make so that education and training providers are able to meet those gaps that EU-IoT has already done within those training courses, as there is that initial need within those leading technologies. And we'll be having a workshop in April, May, and if you could please just sign up at advancedskills.eu to be able to participate. And you can contact us directly if you want to contribute even stronger. We're collaborating with the Quantum Flagship. We're collaborating specifically with organizations like Intel and hopefully with Siemens and other areas like that. So please do reach out to us, because we want to make sure that we are able to provide the best inputs and define really what it is that the industry is going to need so that we achieve the correct commercialization in these areas as well. And just thanks for stealing some of the air today in EUIT, but I thought it was good to show that we have really brought forward what has been done in this project, and is going on further to influence €500 million worth of spending.
Thank you, Brendan. I think this is a very relevant point. We know about the fact that digital skills and providing support to upskill, reskill, and help educating new and older generations to digital skills. It's a must. It's a key priority for the European society. Thank you, Brendan. Now, I would like to pass the floor to Tanya. We will have about 20 minutes before we give the floor to Rolf, but Rolf might be a few minutes late. So Tanya, you have approximately 10-12 minutes, if you can try.
Oh my God. Okay, well, I shall try
15,
and,
then I will try to
distill.
shorten my,
Okay.
yeah, I know that it's difficult, because actually Tanya from Blue Specs will talk about the strategic research agenda, gaps and policy impacts. So please go ahead.
Yeah, and let me just try and get the right, apologies. Let me just try and get the presentation. For some reason, it's not, there it is. Can you see my screen?
Sorry, I see that Rolf is online and he is asking to respect the agenda. So yes, we have to speed up. Thank you.
Yeah, can you,
we see you, but we don't see the slides, Tanya.
Okay, let me just see if I can share again. Can you see the slides?
Yes, now we see it.
Perfect. So let me just
slide presentation.
There we go.
Yeah, that's
presentation mode. There you go. Well, thank you very much, Monique. So I understand that I have to go through this very quickly, but the first thing I want to say that it's been an absolute pleasure to be working with the partners over the past 2 years. We started during COVID. We didn't actually get to meet in person. Well, some of us had met before, of course, over many years of working within this field, but others we didn't get to meet until relatively recently. And we were looking at a screenshot of one of our first events, and everyone is looking just as youthful as they did when we started. So without further ado, what what I want to do today is to share one of the principal pieces of work that we've been working on over these 2 years. We've been contributing and, of course, imbibing the information and the results of many other of the presentations that you've seen today. But this, I think, is where some of that knowledge is really crystallized, and hopefully those of you who are still on the call will find something to guide your continued efforts in technological development in a way that's not just compliant, but also is really reflecting what we need within Europe as a society moving forward. So one of the really interesting pieces of work we did was to take the strategic research agendas that were being developed across multiple industry organizations in Europe and to identify the focus of research and innovation by multiple companies and organizations across these very domain-oriented fields. We took the agendas and the publications that were shared from 2022 to 2023, and of course within that period there was, as I just mentioned, there was the intervening pandemic, and we saw really an acceleration in terms of the importance and the adoption of technology across multiple domains, but also across multiple sectors of society. Companies large and small just found that they needed to accelerate all of those efforts and all of those investments. And I think that you'll see that this is also reflected in the research and innovation agendas that were put forward. So the purpose was to have a retrospective look at what the discussions had been, but also to be able to use that analysis to inform the future of the research funding and the focus within Horizon Europe for the period 2025 and 2027. We organised quite an interesting team that looked at all of these events and all of these reports in parallel, and we came up with not just 557 topics that we analysed, but we also were able to organise those into priority areas, applications and technologies. And most of you on this call will be great believers in taxonomy, so we just wanted to explain what those three high-level groupings were. So first of all, priority areas are topics of strategic importance, and they encompass multiple technologies and applications. Applications are referring to specific implementations of technologies within a specific context or addressing a specific goal. And finally, technologies, which I think is probably the term that everyone understands most. Here we're referring to something that's applied within a context and actually enables applications and priority areas to be fulfilled. So if we just have a bird's eye view, or have a look at with a bird's eye view at the different strategic and innovation research and innovation agendas across the multiple industry organizations, so everything from 6G, SNS, ADRA, AIoTI, EFRA, we found here different themes ranging from components to subjects that were really market focused, reliability, sustainability. And we just did a quick mapping of the amount and of attention and resource that was applied to each of these. And you can see that there are some gaps here in certain organizations, reflect, I suppose, where they consider the most important focus that needs to be placed. So for example, for AIoTI, we've got foundational tech, 6GSNS is actually really broad because it's one of those foundational topics that covers multiple areas and domains. ECS has focused, for example, more on interfaces. And just all of this is available in the report that we already made a public one version, but we're updating it at the moment. What we can see is a real evolution from 2022 to 2023, where, for example, we were addressing contextual IoT. That was one of the most important and most mentioned topics. But actually, when we look now at 2023, I think we're very reflective of the geopolitical moment in which we're all present, which is much more focused on energy and power. So as I was just saying, in terms of trends, there are perhaps three things that we'd like to highlight. First of all, energy and power is much more prevalent across all of the research and innovation, strategic research and innovation agendas, but also interoperability and trustworthy AI. It still remains within the top 5 across most organizations, because this is a topic that is necessary to really drive forward adoption. It needs to be trusted and interoperable for any kind of application to then be scalable and be used and taken up in the market. The other interesting point was around sustainability, but sustainability here can have multiple definitions. And what we saw is that across the spheres, it was really used as, in the sense, not so much as environmental sustainability, but the ability to integrate legacy systems. So sustainability of a service or sustainability of business is very much dependent on that ability of technology to not just come in and be operated as a standalone system, but to be integrated with existing processes and existing machinery even. So the other link we wanted to make was between not just the research and innovation agendas, but also how the European Union was able to kind of look at where the market was acting and where it believed that the investment needed to be made, and to understand where regulation could support that in some way. So we did an analysis of several acts. I'm just mentioning 4 here. So Data Act, Artificial Intelligence Act, there's also the Cybersecurity Resilience Act, there's a proposal for a CHIPS Act, and there were very many more that we analysed, and we've in fact presented, and there's a report available on those. But we found that for the next generation internet, so for us as a community, the ones that are most relevant at the moment are certainly the Data Act that has just gone through Parliament and is just waiting for approval by the Council, and of course the Artificial Intelligence Act. And there are other world regions that are also dedicating quite a lot of attention to very specifically the Artificial Intelligence Act. I don't know whether you all saw the latest letter signed by Elon Musk and Steve Wozniak, really calling for a halt on artificial intelligence applications, because they believe that there are a lot of social dangers, or there are certain things that are really posing a problem, not just to democracy, but to how we all live. So there's a need, funnily enough, from those from a group of libertarians to really look at how the public sector can come in, government can come in and legislate to safeguard all our rights. So if you haven't had a look at that, I really strongly suggest you do. We will be looking at it as well. But again, just to say that it's not just Europe, but also other world regions that are really calling into question what artificial intelligence is doing for us at the moment, and the danger it can pose to human rights, but also how we go about our business and how we really grow as industrial and market actors. So across all of the acts and different regulatory tools that have been launched over the few years, we just wanted to map them. Rita made reference to this framework, so Human IoT Interface, Near Edge and Data Spaces. This is just a very brief overview of where the main relevance is, but I just wanted to perhaps go into the Data Act in a little bit more detail. So the objective is really to focus, we had GDPR, the Data Act is more about industrial data and making sure that those of us who develop products that are connected in some way are able to understand what our obligations are in relation to any data we might be collecting, and that will inform what we do. So it's very interesting, not just because it's about the connected product itself, but also about how we might use, for example, bots within the delivery of our services and products. A few things that I want to address or to highlight. First of all, there is in the latest data app, there's a tighter scope in terms of product. So the product is defined as a connected product, not just product generically. And where the reference was to open interoperability specifications, there is now a clear drive towards open standards. Portability is added to the concept of interoperability. And in terms of the user data, there are a few tightening up, I suppose, of the provisions that were there previously. So, for example, there's a new section on data literacy, and there's a specification now that user data should be portable, but in a way that's technologically feasible. I think that this is something that some players were saying, yes, I can provide this data to you, but they were providing it in formats that were actually very, very difficult for anyone to use. I think another really important milestone is that there's been a lot more harmonization with, for example, the Data Governance Act and GDPR. In terms of substance, the new act, I think, reflects a much better understanding of the data ecosystem. So it's understanding that data is not really used in a very linear way. So if you think of TRLs and product development and all of the ways that we're used to developing technology, or we have been used to developing technology, they were kind of like a very much stage gates. So you go from 1 to 2 to 3 to 4. With data, that's absolutely not the case, and everything from generative AI to ChatGPT, you can mention any number of developments that are based on data. You can see that that development is very much an iterative development, and one that needs to be looked at in an ongoing or as an ongoing and iterative cycle. The other thing is that the Act specifically mentioned things like trade secrets and IPR, so that there are safeguards. Yeah.
Sorry, Tanya, we need to speed up a little bit because I have 4 minutes.
Okay, right. Well, I think I'll just go then to the AI Act, and you can all have a look at this on the report. Scope of AI systems, there are some debates there about what should be classified as AI systems. There are also comments there on the need to really ensure that industry understands what standards are there, so developers can follow those standards and make sure that they're compliant from the start. There are regulatory sandboxes, but really importantly also, there's an AI box that means that there should be a connection between what happens on the ground between developers and technology providers and the policymakers responsible for really ensuring that we are safeguarded, as I mentioned earlier, against abuse within in the deployment of AI. I won't go through this then. Just in terms of guidance, there are a couple of reports that we've published already on expert consultation. We've got an NGIoT roadmap and policy recommendations, which we are in the process of updating, and a data set of the 3 years analysis. And we're just about also to publish a publication on our challenges and reusability plans for development components within the use cases. I wanted to finish by thanking very particularly the expert group. We were not being able to really analyze the implications or the importance of all of these acts without the experts that have participated in the several workshops. So a shout out to all of these. They've been really invaluable in making sure that we have something that is really relevant and applicable to the market. So yeah, Monique, I think I shall stop there so you don't call me again, and really happy to provide more information as you need it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tanya, and sorry for breaking into your words, but yeah, everything has been shifting forward. So now, before giving the floor to Rolf, what I will do is I will share with you some points related to the community related aspect, and also what's going to happen next in the community. So let me share my screen with you. I hope you can see. Yes, you can see. Okay. So what happens next? So what have we been doing and how we will move forward? The community, of course, is there to stay. And what I think it's very important is that we have tried in all activities to really build an ecosystem and to work for this ecosystem to continue bring value to all its participants. Some of the core aspects have been related to closing existing gaps and helping also smaller companies and participants in this ecosystem to play a more active role. We've done a lot of events, we've done webinars, we've done online communications, and despite the COVID, as was mentioned before, we tried to animate online a few activities. When we started, we had a pretty complex, a rather articulated context. A lot of the projects that you have heard about today are finishing in the next few months. The ICT is 56, but many more joined along the way. As Tanya mentioned, we did work on the policy-driven aspects. We have done work with some of the major alliances and associations existing in the framework. Some of them have been also helping us, injecting input in the work we have done. And essentially, what we tried to do was to sort of provide guidance. And now the question is, what's going to happen there next? You know that this is tomorrow, it's the final day of the CSA, but the community is already very active thanks to two other CSAs that are providing support to the initiative of the European Commission called EU-CloudEdge-IoT. And essentially, as we mentioned several times, there is an increasing convergence across various domains that have been somehow putting together forces in several market research and innovation contexts. And there are two CSAs, you see the partners down there, that are again trying to help all the projects and all the partners to actually create synergies and better foster the development and adoption of several technologies and solutions that the projects have been working on. In order now to understand a little bit how the community has been changing, I think it's very important to reflect on the fact that there are some key topics that, of course, have been guiding efforts and also guiding the various EC calls around which new projects have started between last year and this year. And of course, some more will come soon, as you all know. Yesterday, there was an important deadline for the call of new projects that will add to the family. Now it's, I think we have 31 ongoing projects. As I mentioned before, some of them are finishing, but some others have just started. And I think via the EU-CloudEdge-IoT.eu portal, you will find a lot more information coming up in the next few months. Now, across the community, there are task forces that have been created. There are 6 for the time being: strategic liaisons, open source engagement, architecture, ecosystem engagement, market and sectors, and communications. These task forces are providing the fora for the various projects, for the various organizations involved in the projects, to increase collaboration, exchange information, advance use cases, create networking opportunities, help fostering also exploitation progress along various directions. Now, very important is I think, and I'm very proud of saying that EU-IoT has made it happen. It has helped this convergence, and now it's the moment we pass the baton to the next ones. Well, this transition has started already in the few months, but here I would like to thank a lot all the 5 organizations that have been very active all along this journey. And I would like to invite all of you to a very important event that we have organized for the community in May. It's actually, the slide should be inverted. This event is about consultation and consultation on continuum computing. It's 2 days event in Brussels. The first day it's on invitation, and there will be 2 persons invited per project. But the second day is very much open to everyone, and it's about consultation. Consultation on what? On the future vision and research directions for 2025-2027. So you all have a chance to contribute to the next 4 programs, to the next ways in which the investments will be directed. This event is co-organized by the 2 CSAs leading the EUCloudEdgeIoT, also with another CSA that is the softwareforum.eu. What I think is very important is that there is a concrete chance to come and animate discussions around what you believe should be the next areas where the Commission, but also possibly private investors, should provide support, financial support. Now, I would like to thank you all for your attention. I hope I didn't take too much time from Rolf's slot. And on my side, I would like to thank also all the participants of today's meeting. So Rolf, the floor is yours. We cannot hear you, you're still on mute.
Now you should hear me. Okay.
Yes, perfect.
Okay, that's very nice. Thank you, Monique. So it's my task to provide an outlook and then to wrap up. So I try to do that in sort of one go. Maybe just to recap, I think we were at the start. No, I think you were already in the middle of the project when we were at the start of the Next Horizon Europe strategy, and we coined the strategy from cloud to edge to IoT. And I want to share my slides. I have a few slides. Let's see if I make that. It's screen number 3, and you should see it now.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do, Rolf.
Okay. Okay, yes, and we started sort of with a new strategy. What we said, well, you know, from cloud to edge to IoT for the computing continuum, which then was strongly supported also by the digital decade, the key digital strategy for the new Commission. So now we are halfway, you know, of the Commission, you know, and apart from policy making, there was a lot of proposals, legislative proposal related to the data economy. Tanya mentioned some of these legislative acts. So we're halfway, and we have to really go, you know, to reap the benefits and to see, you know, what has been changed and to go for implementation. So big question will be now in the next 2 years, you know, what sort of targets have been achieved from the digital decade, where we are, where we want to go. And one of the issues were the implementation of edge nodes. What is the new infrastructure? Where will it happen, and what is the role of European stakeholders? I think that picture is quite well known, also explained by Brandon and others today. You know, we see this new paradigm from cloud to edge to IoT. We ask for a fresh approach to look, you know, what is the new infrastructure? What is the new role in the data economy? How could we federate resources which are predominantly in the cloud and central at the moment? in order to link it to an IoT infrastructure, and what is the added value of a sort of a new type of infrastructure, which would be the edge. So yes, I think this was our overriding principle, and we got a lot of input and proposals in the first calls. But this, we are still in the beginning of the new projects. We're not halfway through as in the programming. We are still in the first implementation phase. So from that point of view, yes, we were driven by external factors like the CHIPS Act, which are reinforcing Europe's autonomy in data processing, which will support basically also embedded chips and an embedded computing capacity for the edge computing. So that will have an impact, as well as new developments under the electronic and control systems, on embedded systems, which drives new innovation also and the IoT nodes. And our task is particularly complicated because IoT was and it remains to be an horizontal unit, being linked to many other initiatives. And Horizon Europe is a research and innovation program, but obviously we are confronted, and that was also clear from the talk of Tanya, we are confronted with the developments in other technologies and in other areas. First of all, yes, it's AI. AI as a game changer now recently, with new advances in AI, but also advances in the integration of AI into the edge nodes, which have an impact on our infrastructure and on the research and innovation. We are confronted with sort of paving the way to the transition from research and innovation towards data infrastructure and the implementation of data spaces, a deployment which is supported under the Digital Europe program. First sort of data space implementation projects have been selected and started in the role of mobility. Others will be called on next year and will follow, like agriculture and energy. So a lot of things are going on over there as well, and we have to look what's going on the deployment side. Also, linked to the member states with the IPC on cloud infrastructure, and we continue to work with industry predominantly, on what we call the cloud edge computing continuum on different levels. I think that is a bit of the main topic for you. I was quite happy to see today Mirko's presentation, looking at maturity of different sectors. Yes, because where we are with IoT, I think more than 70% of IoT revenues are linked to cloud, and a larger portion is linked to consumer IoT. Consumer IoT, gadgets, wearables, a mobile phone at the first place, IoT services which are cloud-based. The question is, where remains our industrial stakeholders? Where is the main deriving European industry in that area of Cloud-Edge-IoT? Do they and when do they start embracing this new paradigm? And if they start looking at that one, is it too late, or what role would they play in an international global market? So that is why we lend on your work, we lend on your expertise, we rely on your interaction with the projects in order to excel out and to bring out the main analytic messages which guide us also for the new strategy in the future work. This said, this picture shows, we want to go with industry. We need European stakeholders taking the lead in industrial domains. And the question is, which are the driving industrial domains? Health was mentioned earlier on, manufacturing, but also from Tanya, the energy is top of our agenda at the moment, both from the services point of view as well as the policy point of view, and we have to see whether there's a role of what we call the grid edge and future pilots. So the orchestration of the industrial fabric is a key element and remains a key element of the IoT strategy of our strategy of the unit, and will remain on top of that with a new proposal or the call for proposals on piloting emerging smart IoT platforms and decentralized intelligence driven by a number of key sectors. What's very important as well, following your work and mentioned by Golbo for the new CSAs, is to have sort of a solid presentation on the taxonomy of IoT and edge computing. Here, there's an example quite dedicated from IoTi, but it's not the final one. So we need a crispy message, which is then, supported by the core of our projects. If we talk about edge computing, what do we mean? Where do we start off? How do the project position themselves? So taxonomy is very important, to make the next step. The next step in a way also towards the open calls, which are now being launched by the end of this year and next year by the current project of MetaOS. So here, this is the rhythm you see. I think we need sort of establish a reference documents for the open calls. Here we call it taxonomy for edge computing, looking at the value chains and the different levels of this taxonomy, which could be the baseline for open calls from projects under the Data 2021-1/5 future European platforms for the MetaOS. So this is an issue which is of interest for you, but also particularly where we rely on the support of the CSAs. Monique mentioned it just, we just closing, or we have closed the call on cognitive computing, cognitive tools to manage the computing continuum. We received quite a number of proposals, so we see a lot of momentum in that area, and we have to charge our experts or rely on our experts to select, hopefully, the best ones and the most promising ones. But again, just for you to know, I think we still and we continue to rely on coordination support actions to help us to extract the impact of the projects, to support the implementation, to mobilize a wider range of stakeholders beyond our usual suspects, but also to help us in driving the future strategy. I mentioned already that next year we're going for a really, zoom into the industrial state of play, key industrial sectors, and hopefully also convincing and mobilizing key industrial stakeholders of Europe to engage in the upcoming pilots. So that's where we are at the moment. 2024 is next year, yes, but still already this year we have started, and we have to engage in what would be the strategy beyond 2024, meaning 2025 to 2027. So we are screening a bit on the evolution of the edge technologies. Our guiding principles are open architectures, avoiding vendor lock-in, and focus on industrial IoT use cases on the one hand, but also embracing, what's happening in the open source domain and on that level. We have to look at the network evolution, what's happening on the connectivity side. Connectivity was always the bread and butter for IoT, and nobody clearly knows, yes, we know the value of connectivity went down, but still, there's an evolution in network connectivity towards mesh topologies, new features, virtual functions of networks in 5G and 6G, and the convergence of that one, and to see what's happening also on the future Web 4.0 technologies. Time constraints was the riding selling point for edge computing, keeping data local. Predictable performance, automation, and safety in the real world will be increasingly important in order to have really a local security ecosystem, to have a local safety control ecosystem, allowing to have more automation at the edge. Going to the left side, what sort of screening we could imagine over there. Yes, I think we see the role of more what we call JPUs also, at the coming from the cloud towards the edge, supported, supporting immersive environments, virtual support or immersive support, visualization or interactive visualization. Whatever will happen there, I think we will certainly see many different ways of interaction at that the user interface and at the edge of the network. What we also want to know, and that's why it's in red, what is the evolution of what we call now edge computing distributed computing. We talked about swarm intelligence, and the last call project has started this year. What is the capability of having more computing capacity, you know, and also to do local simulation and integrating local digital twins, automated cyber-physical systems, you know. There's a bit of a question, you know, around that topic. What will be the impact, the technology driver for future possible applications at the edge? I mentioned security and privacy will be certainly much more reinforced with more uncertain information and unsecured information from the internet. We don't know what is the source. Is it a real person? Is it fake news? Or is it even, you know, just, you know, artificial news, just, you know, consolidated somewhere and put forward for one reason ever? So these local securitization of content, local IDs would be very important, however, to have the proof of origin of the information. That will be a key driver for future, particularly also for future cyber-physical systems, automation systems. Yeah, I think that's a bit of the screening. I think I'm very thankful to Monique that you announced that we are having a workshop on the 11th of May, you know, to talk about this vision. You are all invited to provide us with some short written input, you know, what you think about the future, or what we call an expression of interest. And that's where we are at the moment. We work on a strategy paper, first discussion with member states, and we have to further elaborate on the strategy paper, which will happen on the 11th of May with your input. Hopefully we gain some time. Unfortunately, the IoT week has been cancelled, which was also a bit of a spotlight, you know, where we are, to get feedback, to have direct interaction with you. So I'm very happy that at least on the 11th of May, you know, we're planning a face-to-face meeting to have this direct interaction, which will not replace the scale of an IoT week, but we have to think of other events in order to replace it with a part of that face-to-face and physical interaction. So I think that is a bit of my closing of the outlook. Maybe a quick summary of the event. First of all, many thanks for the nice presentation, the careful presentation of the event. We have dived into sort of a multi-dimensional view of the projects, which needs to be done, which is necessary, from the business dimension, from the role of standardization and open source, the skills point of view. So I really had an appealing methodology and relevant results. And indeed, there's a need to have this sort of management, the key messages for the management. What's on my wish list from the sort of work you did, or from the future CSA, is to have a bit more on the big messages. Where is the big bang? What are the big tickets from the projects? What are the key partners? So where are you had some highlights, some examples which make a difference? And I can give you one example, which was from Vetliet, where there was a partner with an AI computing software and hardware, which actually was bought by Qualcomm, and which now is resold to us under the software-defined vehicle perspective. So this is sort of a key message which should be brought to the attention, and where you could have brought it up, you know, as one of the key examples, which definitely will strike our management if these news pop up that we have project partners who were appealing, you know, who made a quantum leap and then, you know, was bought, and it could have a major impact also in different domains. So the big tickets is always a question then, you know, which is maybe some recommendation for the future. Apart from that, yes, I think my takeaways is clear. We have to look at trends. Tanya mentioned energy and power. I fully confirm that it's on our shoulders. It weighs quite heavy. What I see from industrial affairs is sustainability, the role of sustainability in IoT. It's not just a buzzword. It's not, you know, that's the SDGs. We get more substance on it. On the regulatory and the legislation side, we have to keep an eye on it. Yes, I think we see that, and the projects have to also work with that one and say, well, you know, this is working, this is not working, or we are afraid of our open source community know which may not be compliant with one of the security acts. What I observe, maybe this is just a trend, but maybe it stabilizes, quite a heavy push for open source. You know, open source driving quite significantly in application domains and might have a direct impact and shorten the time from open source communities to really have industrial uptake. So that is the observation of today. Quite inspiring today. Thank you for organizing the event. Thanks for the speakers. And that's all from my side for the time being until the May.
Thank you, Rolf. I asked all the colleagues from the EU-IoT project to switch on their cameras. I would like to personally...
Monique, I'm not a part of EU-IoT. Shall I turn on or turn on?
You can stay on, but now it's really the moment of the EU-IoT partners, because this is the final celebration time. We will be celebrating in person, but I would like to thank all of the people, and also Rolf, Jan, and other project officers that have helped us a lot all along the journey. It's always a matter of balancing, you know, these inputs and expectations. The CSAs play an important role for the communities, and we have been very glad to serve this community. So from the bottom of my heart, thanks a lot. And there will be many more occasions to meet again and to work together. So stay tuned. All presentations will be up on the website, and we will meet, I hope, in May 10th, 11th, 10th upon invitation and 11th open to all in Brussels. Thanks a lot, and bye everyone.